The room is loud, not just with sound, but with emotion. People talk over each other, voices sharpen. Someone is close to tears. Someone else tries to regain control by raising their voice. The energy is chaotic, uncontained, almost desperate. And then there's one person who doesn't move. They sit slightly apart, posture still, face unreadable, no reaction, no interruption, no attempt to calm the room or join the noise. Their eyes take everything in, but give nothing back. This is the person people quietly label cold, detached, unemotional. We assume that because nothing is showing, nothing is happening. But when it comes to people who don't show emotions, that assumption is usually wrong. Because silence like this is rarely empty. It's intentional. It's not the absence of feeling. It's containment. What you're witnessing isn't emotional indifference. It's a nervous system working overtime to keep something from spilling out. A learned stillness that says, if I don't react, nothing gets worse. Here's the paradox most people miss. The quieter someone becomes under emotional pressure, the more they're often holding inside. This video isn't about people who feel nothing. It's about people who feel deeply and learned early that showing it came at a cost. By the end of this video, you'll understand why emotional silence forms, what's really happening beneath it, and how this pattern shapes relationships, love, and identity in ways most people never see. If you've ever been told you're hard to read or loved someone who was, this will take you further than you expect. Let's begin. When we encounter someone who doesn't show emotion, we tend to flatten them into a single category: quiet, closed off, hard to read. But psychologically, silence is not one thing, and misunderstanding this is where most relationships and self-judgments go wrong. There are three very different ways a person can appear emotionally detached. The first is stoicism. This is the version people often admire. A stoic person feels emotion fully, but doesn't let it run the moment. They notice anger rising, fear tightening the chest, disappointment settling in, and instead of reacting, they pause. Their calm isn't numbness, it's regulation. You'll often see this in moments of crisis. Leaders, surgeons, people who can stay grounded while others panic. Their silence comes from choice. The second is suppression. On the outside, it can look similar. On the inside, it's nothing alike. Suppressors feel intensely, but they're afraid of what will happen if that feeling shows. So they push it down, hard. Their quiet isn't peaceful, it's tense. You'll notice it in clenched jaws, short answers, sudden emotional shutdowns during conflict. Silence here is not wisdom, it's self-protection under strain. The third is alexithymia. This one is the most misunderstood. These individuals aren't hiding emotions, they can't easily identify them. They sense physical signals, a tight stomach, a racing heart, but their mind can't translate those sensations into emotional language. Ask them what they feel, and they genuinely don't know. Silence here is confusion, not avoidance. These three silences may look identical from the outside, but inside they tell completely different stories. And recognizing which one you, or someone you love, lives in changes everything. From the outside, emotional stillness looks empty, like nothing is happening, like the lights are off. But if you could step inside the inner world of someone who doesn't show emotion, the first thing you'd notice is that it isn't quiet at all. It's crowded. Thoughts overlap. Memories surface without warning. Sensations ripple through the body. Tightness in the chest, heat in the face, a pressure that never quite releases. Everything is being monitored, measured, filtered. Not because they don't care, but because caring has consequences. This is the part most people miss. Silence isn't the absence of feeling, it's the absence of safety. For many emotionally detached people, the problem isn't having emotions, It's not knowing where those emotions are allowed to land. There's no clear internal pathway from feeling to expression that doesn't trigger fear, shame, or loss of control. So everything stays inside, circulating without exit. Over time, this creates a strange split. On the outside, they appear calm, composed, unaffected. On the inside, they're constantly managing a flood behind a closed gate. And the gate doesn't close because they want distance. It closes because, at some point, openness became dangerous. So they learned a different language, one of restraint, observation, stillness. Not because they lack depth, but because depth once came at too high a cost. When you understand this, emotional distance stops looking like indifference. It starts looking like endurance. And endurance, quietly practiced for years, can be mistaken for emptiness, when it is anything but. To understand how emotional walls form, we have to look backward, not to moments of obvious trauma, but to what quietly went missing. This is where childhood emotional neglect, or SEN, comes in. CN isn't about being hit, screamed at, or abandoned. In fact, many people who grew up emotionally neglected will say, "My childhood was fine." Their parents provided food, shelter, education, sometimes even praise for achievements. From the outside, everything looked stable, but something essential wasn't there. Imagine a child who comes home upset, not dramatic, just confused or hurt. In an emotionally attuned home, the parent notices. They name the feeling. "You seem sad." They sit with it. The child learns something critical. My inner experience matters, and it can be shared safely. In a neglectful environment, the response is different. "You're overreacting." It's not a big deal, or nothing at all. No comfort, no curiosity, no reflection. And here's the key. The child doesn't interpret this as the parent's limitation. They interpret it as a rule about themselves. My feelings are inconvenient. My emotions don't belong anywhere. I should handle this alone. So the child adapts. They stop reaching outward. They quiet the signals. They build an internal wall, not to shut people out, but to keep attachment intact. Because for a child, staying connected to a caregiver matters more than staying connected to their own emotional world. Over time, that adaptation hardens. Emotional expression feels awkward. Vulnerability feels foreign. Even identifying feelings becomes difficult. This is why emotional detachment is not a flaw. It's a survival strategy that worked once. But strategies built for childhood don't always serve adulthood. The wall that protected you then can isolate you now. And unless it's understood, not judged, it doesn't simply come down. When emotional overwhelm becomes too much, the body doesn't ask permission. It intervenes. Most people are familiar with fight or flight, the surge of energy, the impulse to confront or escape. But there is a third response that receives far less attention: freeze. Freeze is what happens when neither fighting nor running feels possible. For a child in an unpredictable home, for someone trapped in chronic stress, for anyone whose emotions were repeatedly met with dismissal or danger, the nervous system learns a quieter solution. It slows everything down. Sensation dulls, reaction disappears. This is not weakness, it's biological intelligence. Over time, freeze can become a default state. Emotions don't vanish, they go offline. The body feels distant, heavy, or oddly neutral. Joy doesn't peak, sadness doesn't fully land. Life becomes muted, like the volume has been turned down across the board. This is numbing. Dissociation often accompanies it, a subtle sense of watching life from a step removed. Conversations happen, tasks get done, but there's a lingering sense of not quite being there. People describe it as functioning without feeling, existing without inhabiting. And here's the critical distinction. Numbing is not emotional maturity, it's anesthesia. The nervous system isn't calm because it feels safe. It's quiet because it learned that feeling was overwhelming. What once protected you from pain now quietly limits your range of experience. Not just the hurt, but the joy, connection, and aliveness that come with being fully present. Understanding this reframes emotional detachment entirely. It's not a personality trait. It's a nervous system doing exactly what it was trained to do, long after the danger has passed. From the outside, emotional control often looks like emotional intelligence. Someone stays calm. They don't overreact. They rarely raise their voice. In a culture that fears discomfort, this is quickly labelled as maturity. But control and intelligence are not the same thing. Emotional control is about restraint. It's the ability to suppress reactions, to keep feelings contained, to maintain composure no matter what's happening inside. This skill can be useful, especially in high-pressure environments, but on its own, it tells us very little about awareness. Emotional intelligence, on the other hand, requires contact. It involves recognizing what you feel, understanding why it's there, and responding, internally and externally, with intention. It's not about never feeling too much. It's about staying connected while you feel. Here's where the confusion happens. Many emotionally shut down people are praised for being so calm. In reality, they're not regulated, they're disconnected. The nervous system isn't balanced, it's braced. Feelings aren't processed, they're held at a distance. Calm without awareness is not wisdom, it's containment. And containment has limits. Without emotional intelligence, control eventually cracks. It shows up as exhaustion, sudden anger, or a persistent sense of emptiness that no amount of self-discipline can fix. True emotional maturity isn't about being unshakable. It's about being reachable by yourself first. Because the goal isn't to feel less. It's to feel safely, clearly, and without disappearing from your own experience. When emotions are consistently held back, they don't dissolve, they relocate. This is what psychologists often refer to as the volcano effect. On the surface, everything looks stable, calm, functional, even controlled. But beneath that surface, pressure is building slowly, relentlessly, without release. Research shows that people who habitually suppress emotion experience higher physiological stress than those who express it. Their heart rate stays elevated longer, cortisol lingers in the body. The nervous system never fully returns to baseline. What looks like composure is often sustained tension, and the body keeps track. This is why so many emotionally shut down people struggle with physical symptoms that seem to have no clear cause. Chronic headaches, jaw pain, digestive issues, back tension, insomnia, unexplained fatigue. The emotion that isn't acknowledged by the mind doesn't disappear. It finds another channel. What you don't feel emotionally, your body will feel for you. Over time, the pressure needs an outlet. And because there's no gradual release, it escapes suddenly. A sharp comment, a slammed door, an outburst over something trivial, a delayed text, a spilled drink, a misunderstood tone. To everyone else, it looks disproportionate. To the person experiencing it, it feels uncontrollable, because the eruption was never about the moment. It was about everything that had been contained before it. This pattern is often misunderstood as anger issues or emotional instability. In reality, it's the predictable result of long-term suppression. When expression isn't allowed in small manageable doses, it eventually forces its way out in destructive ones. The tragedy of the volcano effect isn't just the explosion. It's the belief that eruptions prove you're too much. In truth, they're evidence of something else entirely. Feelings don't need to be eliminated. They need somewhere safe to go. In romantic relationships, emotional detachment creates a particular kind of loneliness, one that exists even when two people are technically together. Stone-faced individuals rarely appear dramatic in love. They don't flood their partners with messages. They don't escalate conflict. They don't demand reassurance. On the surface, they seem easy to be with. Low maintenance, stable, but over time, their partners begin to feel something unsettling. They feel unseen. There are no emotional cues to respond to, no clear signals of longing, fear, or vulnerability. When conflict arises, the stone face goes quiet. Not explosive, not cruel, just unavailable. And for the partner on the other side, that silence can feel like abandonment. They start knocking on the wall. Talk to me. What are you feeling? Why won't you let me in? But here's the painful truth. The stone-faced person isn't withholding intimacy to punish or control. They often don't know how to open the door without feeling overwhelmed or unsafe. Emotional closeness doesn't register as comfort. It registers as exposure. So they rely on what they know. They show love through actions instead of words. Fixing things, solving problems, making sure logistics are handled, keeping life running smoothly. This is how they care. It's how they stay connected without risking emotional overload. Unfortunately, love languages don't always translate. Their partner may crave emotional presence, eye contact, reassurance, shared vulnerability, and without it, even genuine devotion can feel hollow. Over time, both people become lonely in different ways. One feels emotionally starved, the other feels perpetually misunderstood. The tragedy isn't a lack of love, it's a lack of emotional safety on both sides. And until that safety exists, intimacy will always feel like something to manage, rather than something to rest inside. When people encounter emotional distance, the instinct is often to push harder, to demand openness, to insist on answers, to break the wall down by force. But walls built for survival don't respond to pressure. They respond to safety. If you are the one living behind the wall, healing doesn't require dramatic emotional releases or public vulnerability. It starts much smaller, with noticing. A tight chest, a shallow breath, a heaviness you usually ignore. Naming these sensations without judging them is the first step back into connection. Tools like an emotion wheel aren't simplistic, they're bridges. They help the nervous system relearn a language it was never taught. And just as important, pacing. Feeling doesn't have to happen all at once to be real. If you love someone who struggles to show emotion, the most powerful shift is often counterintuitive. Stop demanding expression. Start offering presence. Silence that feels pressured will always trigger retreat. Silence that feels permitted can become an invitation. Pay attention to how they already show care. Many emotionally detached people speak through action. Consistency, reliability, protection. Acknowledging these efforts doesn't lower the wall, it softens it. Simple phrases matter more than questions. You don't have to explain. I'm here. We can sit with this. Safety isn't created through intensity. It's created through predictability, patience, and respect for pace. When someone learns that connection doesn't require performance, the wall no longer has to do so much work. And slowly, often imperceptibly, it begins to lower on its own. The wall you built was never your identity. It was a solution, a necessary one, formed in moments when feeling too much threatened connection, safety, or survival. And for a long time, it worked. It kept things contained. It kept you functioning. It helped you move forward when slowing down wasn't an option. But adaptation is not destiny. What protected you then doesn't have to define you now. The capacity to feel didn't disappear. It simply learned to wait. Emotions don't vanish. They conserve energy. They look for safety. And when safety arrives, even quietly, they return. You're not cold. You're not broken. You're not incapable of depth. You're someone who learned to endure. And endurance, when misunderstood, can look like distance, but underneath it is a system that survived and can learn new ways to live. If this video helped put language to something you've carried silently, you're not alone here. This channel is a space for people who want to understand the quieter patterns of the human mind, without judgment, without pressure. If you found this meaningful, consider subscribing, and if any part of this resonated with you, Share your experience in the comments below. I read every story. Thank you for being here.